So we come to Mr. Visala.
Yes, I'm Aku Visala, originally from the University of Helsinki. I did my PhD in Helsinki in philosophy of religion, and the topic was, generally speaking, the cognitive science of religion and the religious and philosophical aspects of it, mainly the implications. I was assessing the implications of it, and the paper that I wrote for the essay contest, which was called Evolutionary Debunking Arguments, Religion and Morality Reconsidered. I go through some of the arguments in this area, and so now the question is, what is an evolutionary debunking argument? That sounds like a funny word. So it's a way to structure an argument. So some of these evolutionary debunking arguments have already been mentioned. So Jeffrey Slosh mentioned the topic of morality, but he didn't really discuss it at the end of his paper earlier today. So the argument goes as follows, the basic structure. You can fill out the details in different ways. There are two premises and a conclusion. The first premise is what is usually called a causal premise, and it goes like this. The subject's belief that P is explained by mechanism M. You can just stick whatever to those slots. So first, the causal premise, there's a subject, the subject has a certain belief, and that belief is causally explained by a mechanism M, whatever that mechanism is. In the case of these evolutionary debunking arguments, that mechanism is usually something to do with biological explanation of that belief. Then there's another premise, usually called the epistemic premise, which then says that, that mechanism M, whatever that mechanism is, usually an evolutionary mechanism, is not a truth tracking process. So in other words, the truth tracking aspect here is cast in terms of counterfactual conditions. And this counterfactual is again something that Jeff mentioned. So the idea being something like this. Given that mechanism produces these types of beliefs, what it produces, even if the belief weren't true, the mechanism would still produce that belief. And the conclusion is, given the epistemic premise and the causal premise, that the belief of the subject, which is explained by this process, which is not truth tracking, is not justified. And that's the basic structure of the evolutionary debunking argument. Then you fill in the details in different ways. You can apply this same structure to morality, to moral beliefs, and you can apply to religious beliefs. And then the open question is, can you apply to other types of beliefs as well, perhaps scientific, perhaps common sense beliefs, and different forms of the argument. Well, my paper is then just looks at some of the arguments made in the case of morality and religion. And there are basically two ways to get out of the evolutionary debunking. One is to say that the causal premise is not well supported, to say that, let us say that we have an evolutionary explanation of morality. Then you can say that, well, that explanation doesn't really give us the whole causal story of our belief. That's one way of doing it. And the other way is to say that there's something wrong with the whole schema, and say that warrant doesn't really depend on a causal connection or the kind of truth trackingness or the reliability of the mechanism. And that's pretty much the paper. And my conclusion is that as things currently stand, there are reasonably good responses to evolutionary debunking arguments in the domains of morality and religion. So I'm personally, as a consequence, not too much bothered by such arguments. But this paper is part of a bigger project that I'm now engaged in, funded by the Academy of Finland, and this is my second year, and as has been mentioned already, I'm with the Center of Theological Inquiry in Princeton, which I'm extremely grateful and happy to be, and I've enjoyed it very much. And the bigger project is about theological anthropology and evolutionary psychology. And the issue of debunking is, of course, one of the issues that I will take up in the course of the project.
Thank you very much.